The COMAC C919 is more than just an airplane. It's a bold statement of intent from China, signaling its determination to become a major player in the global aviation industry. It's a symbol of China's ambition to break the Boeing-Airbus duopoly that has long controlled the skies and shaped the future of commercial flight. For decades, Boeing and Airbus have dominated the skies, setting the standards for safety, technology, and efficiency. China wanted in, and it wanted to compete on equal footing. The C919, a single-aisle jet, was designed to compete directly with the Boeing 737 MAX and Airbus A320neo, the workhorses of global aviation responsible for millions of flights each year. Building the C919 became a national priority under China's Made in China 2025 plan, a sweeping initiative to upgrade the country's manufacturing capabilities and reduce reliance on foreign technology. Development began in 2008, with its first flight in 2017, and after years of rigorous testing and certification, commercial service finally started in 2023. The strategy was clear: first, dominate China's huge domestic market, then expand globally, challenging the established giants on their own turf. With thousands of new planes needed in China over the next 2 decades, the C919 had a ready customer base eager for a homegrown alternative. It seats between 158 to 192 passengers, offering flexibility for airlines to serve both dense and less crowded routes. The C919 has a range ideal for short to medium-haul flights, the most profitable and in-demand segment of the airline industry, connecting major cities and regional hubs. Airlines were drawn to its promise of modern technology, improved passenger comfort, and competitive operating costs, making it an attractive option for both established carriers and new entrants. For China, the C919 was a way to reduce dependence on Western suppliers, especially for critical components and advanced systems. But its significance goes beyond aviation. It's a geopolitical statement of China's technological rise and its desire to shape the future of high-tech industries. Success would boost China's entire industrial ecosystem, spur innovation across sectors, and inspire a new generation of engineers and scientists. The C919 was the first real challenger to the Boeing-Airbus duopoly in a generation, signaling a new era of competition in commercial aviation. More competition could mean lower prices for travelers, better deals for airlines, and a more dynamic marketplace. And ultimately, it could drive more innovation for airlines and passengers worldwide, changing the way we all experience flight. On August 20th, 2025, the U.S. government shocked the world with a single, sweeping decision that reverberated across continents. The Department of Commerce officially placed China's COMAC on its entity list, citing urgent national security concerns and escalating tensions. This move immediately blocked U.S. companies from exporting crucial technologies, components, and software to COMAC without a special government license, effectively freezing the flow of innovation. The timing couldn't have been more dramatic. COMAC was just preparing to ramp up mass production of its flagship C919 jet, aiming to challenge Western aviation giants. U.S. suppliers, caught off guard, had to halt all shipments immediately, leaving parts stranded and assembly lines silent. The C919, though a symbol of Chinese ambition, relies heavily on Western technology, especially its advanced engines built by a U.S.-French joint venture and other critical avionics. The future of this international partnership was suddenly thrown into chaos, with engineers and executives scrambling for answers on both sides of the Pacific. The U.S. justified the move as a necessary step to protect American intellectual property and safeguard national security interests. Officials cited growing fears that civilian aviation technology could be diverted to China's military, blurring the line between commercial and defense sectors. The announcement sent shockwaves through the global aerospace industry, triggering market turmoil and uncertainty among executives. Aviation, once a bridge fostering cooperation between the U.S. and China, suddenly became a new front in their intensifying rivalry. Boeing, which had sold thousands of planes to China over decades, now faced a fractured relationship and an uncertain future in the world's fastest-growing market. The move forced companies and entire countries to urgently reconsider their dependencies and rethink their global strategies. The world of aviation changed overnight as grounded jets and silent factories became symbols of a new era. The dominance of the Airbus-Boeing duopoly was reinforced, but the industry's future became more uncertain than ever before. The global supply chain, once seamless and interconnected, was suddenly at risk, leaving the entire aviation world holding its breath. The U.S. cited national security as its main reason for targeting COMAC, the Chinese state-owned aircraft manufacturer. This move was not made lightly, but after months of internal debate and mounting concerns about the shifting global balance of power, officials argued that COMAC is closely tied to China's military-industrial complex, blurring the lines between civilian and military advancements. The core concern is military-civil fusion, where civilian technology like advanced jet engines or avionics can be repurposed for military use, strengthening China's armed forces. U.S. officials fear that C919 technology could directly benefit China's Air Force, giving it a strategic edge in future conflicts. Protecting American intellectual property was another key factor, as U.S. companies have invested billions in research and development. The U.S. aerospace industry is a crown jewel, built on decades of innovation, and is seen as vital to both economic strength and national defense. There have been long-standing accusations of Chinese IP theft and forced technology transfers, fueling mistrust and calls for tougher action. Supplying C919 components, some argued, helped a state-backed rival learn to compete, potentially undermining U.S. leadership in aviation. Acting now, as C919 production was set to grow rapidly, was seen as a preemptive strike to prevent China from closing the technology gap. The move fits a broader U.S. strategy to slow China's tech rise and limit its influence in critical industries, especially those with security implications. Civil aviation, once a symbol of engagement and cooperation, is now a battleground in the larger U.S.-China rivalry. The U.S. is willing to accept short-term economic pain for what it sees as long-term strategic gain, prioritizing security over immediate profits. Domestic political pressure also played a role. Taking a tough line on China is popular with voters and seen as a bipartisan issue in Washington. The risks of empowering COMAC now outweigh the benefits of engagement, according to U.S. policymakers, who see the stakes as higher than ever. Washington's thinking has fundamentally shifted, marking a new era in U.S.-China relations and setting the stage for future confrontations. China's response was swift and furious, calling the U.S. move technological bullying. COMAC vowed to find solutions, but the shock was clear. Chinese social media erupted with calls for boycotts and self-sufficiency. U.S. aerospace suppliers saw their stocks dip, caught in the crossfire. Industry groups warned the move could backfire, harming American jobs and pushing allies away. Airlines worldwide grew wary. An aircraft vulnerable to politics is a risky investment. Boeing and Airbus's dominance was reinforced, but the market grew more fractured. Experts warned of a split into U.S. and China-aligned tech spheres, complicating travel and maintenance. European suppliers faced tough choices: comply with U.S. sanctions or risk penalties. Developing nations saw the move as another example of U.S. economic power. Every player in aviation now had to rethink their position in a more divided world. The fallout was global and immediate. For COMAC, the U.S. action was a crisis. C919 production halted. Critical U.S. and Western components were suddenly out of reach. The biggest problem: engines. No Chinese alternative is ready. Key systems like avionics and landing gear also rely on Western suppliers. Replacing these parts would take years and a complete redesign. The C919's credibility in the global market was shattered. Airlines need reliability. Now, the C919 looked risky. China may double down on self-reliance, pouring resources into domestic aerospace. The path ahead is difficult, but the drive for independence is now stronger than ever. On the surface, this seemed like a win for Boeing and Airbus. With the C919 in crisis, their duopoly looked secure. Chinese airlines would turn back to them for new planes. But for Boeing, the situation is risky. China could retaliate by favoring Airbus. Boeing could lose billions in future orders. Airbus, as a European company, stands to gain from both sides. It could dominate the Chinese market and benefit from the C919's troubles. But even Airbus faces risks. Global supply chains are destabilized, and it may have to pick sides if the trade war escalates. Both companies face a more volatile, uncertain future. The duopoly's balance of power could shift dramatically. The global industry is now more unpredictable than ever. No one is truly safe from the fallout. The U.S. ban sent shockwaves through the global aerospace supply chain. U.S. suppliers lost a major growth market and faced stranded investments. European partners on the C919 now face tough legal and political choices. The U.S. entity list has global reach. Foreign firms risk penalties if they keep working with COMAC. The ban exposes the vulnerability of globalized supply chains to political risk. Companies may shift to more regionalized, resilient supply chains, prioritizing security over efficiency. This could mean duplicating production or redesigning products to avoid U.S. export controls. New opportunities may arise for manufacturers in countries not aligned with the U.S. or China. But overall, disruption and higher costs are likely. Rebuilding supply chains is expensive and slow. Airlines and passengers will ultimately pay the price through higher fares. The era of seamless global aerospace may be ending. The industry must now adapt to a more fragmented world. The shock will be felt for years to come. The U.S. move against COMAC signals a new kind of Cold War, fought with export controls, not armies. Aviation is now a central battleground in U.S.-China rivalry. The skies are dividing into two tech ecosystems, one U.S.-led, one China-led. Chinese aircraft may not be certified in the West, and vice versa. This split complicates international travel and maintenance. Competing standards could stifle innovation and create inefficiencies. Other nations will be pressured to choose sides, shaping the future of aviation. The dream of a single, interconnected world of air travel is under threat. A more fragmented, competitive landscape is emerging. The consequences will be global and long-lasting. All eyes are on China's response. Will it target Boeing, restrict rare earth exports, or escalate the trade war? The fate of billions in trade and thousands of jobs hangs in the balance. COMAC and the Chinese government must decide: negotiate for U.S. licenses or go all in on self-sufficiency. Watch for new funding for domestic engines and avionics. Global suppliers are reassessing their strategies. Will they divest from China or find ways to stay engaged? The industry's next moves will reveal how deep this divide will go. This could be the moment the aviation industry fractures, or a crisis resolved by diplomacy. Technology, trade, and security are now inseparable. The C919 is no longer just a plane, it's a symbol of a global struggle. The world is watching to see what happens next in the skies.